Good evening and welcome to the DebtCircle Sundown brief for June 4th, 2026. I'm Leela and here's your complete roundup of today's debt market activity. Let's begin with the highest yielding listed corporate bond transactions of the day. Unifin's Capital India Limited topped the list with a yield of 17.25% and a trade value of 60 lakh rupees. Another bond from Unifin's Capital India Limited was traded at a yield of 16.70% with a trade value of 1 lakh rupees. Akara Capital Advisors Private Limited recorded a yield of 15.90% with a trade value of 75 lakh rupees. Progfin Private Limited saw a yield of 15.07% with a trade value of 0.10 lakh rupees. And Midland Microfin Limited delivered a yield of 15.02% with a trade value of 0.10 lakh rupees. Moving to the unlisted corporate bond market, Branch International Financial Services Private Limited recorded the highest yield at 16.25% with a trade value of 40 lakh rupees. Reliance Capital Limited witnessed a yield of 15.80% with a trade value of 100 lakh rupees. Advanced Performance Materials Private Limited generated a yield of 15.71% with a trade value of 171 lakh rupees. GMR Sports Venture Private Limited traded at a yield of 14.44% with a trade value of 2000 lakh rupees. And Apex Homes Private Limited recorded a yield of 14.00% with a trade value of 3198 lakh rupees. Now let's look at mutual fund debt market activity. Gross purchases stood at 13,324.40 crore rupees. Gross sales came in at 22,432.10 crore rupees. Net investment was negative 9,107.70 crore rupees. Month-to-date net investment for June also stood at negative 9,107.700 crore rupees. Turning to foreign portfolio investor activity in the debt market. Under the general limit category, gross purchases were 559.19 crore rupees, while gross sales were 536.51 crore rupees, resulting in a net investment of 22.68 crore rupees. Under the voluntary retention route or VRR, gross purchases were 454.99 crore rupees, and gross sales were 429.14 crore rupees, producing a net investment of 25.85 crore rupees. Under the fully accessible route or FAR, gross purchases were 390.93 crore rupees, while gross sales were 892.50 crore rupees, resulting in a net investment of negative 501.57 crore rupees. For June month to date, net investment under the general limit stood at negative 629.80 crore rupees. VRR net investment stood at 2,637.99 crore rupees, and FAR net investment stood at 1,953.74 crore rupees. For calendar year 2026 year to date, net investment under the general limit category stood at negative 4,025 crore rupees. VRR net investment stood at negative 314 crore rupees, and FAR net investment stood at 16,567 crore rupees. Let's move to money market rates. The call rate closed at 5.27%, the term repo rate stood at 5.04%, basket repo was at 5.10%, and the special repo rate stood at 5.01%. Now for India's government bond yield curve. The 1-year yield stood at 6.12%, the 3-year yield was 6.55%, the 5-year yield was 6.81%, the 7-year yield stood at 7.00%, the 9-year yield was 6.90%, the benchmark 10-year yield stood at 7.03%, the 15-year yield was 7.33%, and the 30-year yield stood at 7.64%. In the Treasury bill market, the 91-day yield and auction cutoff stood at 5.56%. The 182-day yield stood at 5.73%, and the 364-day yield stood at 6.03%. Turning to liquidity indicators, Net liquidity injected into the banking system stood at negative 1,98,594 crore rupees. The Standing Deposit Facility, or SDF, stood at 2,09,993 crore rupees, and marginal standing facility utilization stood at 39 crore rupees. Now for the interest rate derivatives market. The 1-year MIBOR OIS rate stood at 6.12%. The 2-year rate was 6.35%. The 3-year rate stood at 6.46%, and the 5-year rate was 6.64%. Modified MIFOR rates were as follows. The 2-year rate stood at 6.85%. The 3-year rate also stood at 6.85%. The 4-year rate was 7.00%, and the 5-year rate stood at 7.17%. Let's look at currency markets. The US dollar closed at 95 rupees and 81 paise against the Indian rupee, compared with 95 rupees and 71 paise previously. The euro closed at 111 rupees and 50 paise, compared with 111 rupees and 17 paise previously. The British pound closed at 128 rupees and 89 paise, compared with 128 rupees and 71 paise previously. The Japanese yen stood at 0 rupees and 60 paise, unchanged from the previous session, and the Chinese yuan closed at 14 rupees and 12 paise, compared with 14 rupees and 15 paise previously. Moving to commodities and benchmark indices. 24-karat gold with 99.9% purity was quoted at 15,611 rupees per 10 grams, compared with 15,622 rupees previously. Silver was quoted at 2,800 rupees per 10 grams, unchanged from the previous session. Crude oil traded at $94.40 per barrel, compared with $98.36 previously. The Sensex closed at 74,360.01, compared with 74,346.17 in the previous session, and the Nifty closed at 23,416.55, compared with 23,393.75 previously. Finally, let's review today's primary corporate bond issuances. Muthoot Fincorp Limited announced an issuance of 100 crore rupees with a tenure of 91 months and a coupon of 10.40%. Muthoot Finance Limited announced an issuance of 1,500 crore rupees with a tenure of 121 months and a coupon of 8.55%. The issue carries AA+ ratings from CRISIL Ratings Limited and ICRA Limited. That concludes the DebtCircle Sundown brief for June 4th, 2026. I'm Leela. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more debt market updates tomorrow. Have a great evening.